And hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the DoDcast Postgame Show. I'm your host, as always, co-editor Ricky Keeler, or one of the hosts, as the Nationals get the series win over the St. Louis Cardinals by a final score of 14-6. And this game had a little bit of everything. It had bad defense. It had good offense, I thought, on all parts. I mean, you had Adam Eaton stepping up, Stephen Drew as a shortstop tonight. Trey Turner going on the 10-day disabled list earlier today with the hamstring injury, but Stephen Drew steps up and makes a huge contribution to the Nationals. Bryce Harper gets on base, I think it was 6 times in this game, even breaks his belt on a bunt. And Tanner Roark, I thought, not a great outing, but he didn't get help from his defense either. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. But the Nationals needed this game. You talk about a team that has still been reeling since that blowout loss on Saturday. They didn't score a run for 8+ innings yesterday against the Phillies before Ryan Zimmerman hits that 3-run pinch-hit home run, which is crushed off of Gomez, and that lost him the closer's job in Philadelphia. But for the Nats to make as many errors as they did, and Bob Carpenter on Masson pointed it out, they had never won a game in franchise history where they made 4 errors. You don't win games when you make 4 errors. This is a rarity. So you got to give them credit for that. Also, congratulations goes out to Dusty Baker, as Chelsea James of the Washington Post tweeted. It's Dusty's 1,770th win. He is now past Jim Leyland for 16th on the all-time win list. So congrats to Dusty Baker, who's done a good job with this team. He's made some questionable decisions, I think, so far this year. But we'll get in a couple of those in a second. But in the end, I think he's been a good manager for this team in the year plus he's been here. But we want to get you involved tonight. You can do that in a variety of ways. You can send us a question on our YouTube page. Feel free to drop one in the chat here. As Al asked me how I'm doing, I'm pretty good, Al. And yep, congrats to Dusty on that one as well in the wins list category. So you could join Al and me in the chat. You could also tweet us on Twitter at Rickinator555 or tweet me at District on Deck. So those are the ways you can contact us. Let's get started by looking at this game. A lot of things to look at. As we look at the line score first, Nationals 14 runs, 19 hits, and 4 errors. The Cardinals 6 runs, 10 hits, and 1 error. You have, again, errors by the entire infield. Stephen Drew, Daniel Murphy, Anthony Rendon, Ryan Zimmerman all make errors. You could make the case they should have 5. Matt Wieters made a terrible throw to second earlier in the game. If Daniel Murphy doesn't save it, you have every position player in the infield make an error. That's how rare this game was tonight, but they were able to at least get out of that and made some great defense. We'll talk about those in a second. The win goes to Tanner Roark, 5 innings, 5 runs, 3 of them earned on 7 hits. He struck out 3 on 104 pitches. He goes to 2-0. Adam Wainwright got shelled. 4 innings, 6 runs, 5 of them earned on 11 hits, struck out 3, walked 2. He goes to 0-2. And this game, you thought on paper when you looked at this matchup between Roark and Wainwright, it was going to be a pitcher's duel. I mean, both have great track records. And as the game went on, it looked like neither of them was going to get out of the 5th inning. And at least Roark did, and he got some great help from Stephen Drew, made a diving play on Johnny Peralta, somehow turned a double play. And without that, I don't think Roark gets out of that inning. But at the same time, when you get a win like that, it still doesn't make the defense excusable. The Nationals have kind of turned their lack of situational hitting, at least early in the season, to their defense, and you don't want to see that, because Rendon's usually a good defender. Murphy has his issues, but I could argue he's been a better defender with the Nats than he was with the Mets. Ryan Zimmerman, he usually makes good plays. And Stephen Drew's not a bad defensive shortstop. They're better than this defensively. And you hope Dusty Baker addresses that with them in the clubhouse after the game. You hope it's an anomaly. You hope it's one they can just shake off, and they're able to be grouped from there. The one thing I like tonight, well, actually a couple of things I like. Let's start with Adam Eaton, who takes over the leadoff spot now with Trey Turner being hurt. And Adam Eaton talked about it in the offseason. He loves to hit leadoff. So for the Nationals, you look at that short-term, the Eaton trade, I think is going to work for them. Long-term, we'll find out. But Eaton went 3 for 4 tonight, 3 RBIs. He walked a couple of times. Well, I think he walked once. I don't think he walked twice. But you look at the way he was able to work the count. In fact, all the Nationals worked the count very well. I'm looking at the ESPN box score right here. And they have 7 of the 9 hitters in this lineup saw 20 or more pitches. That's impressive. Now, yes, they batted 4, 5, 6 times. But to have that amount of ability to work the count, not swing at bad pitches, you absolutely take that. And I think Eaton, who had 4.6 pitches per plate appearance coming into the night, If he continues to do this, they'll absolutely take a 485 on base. He walks every game. He gets base hits. He had a huge base hit in the second inning that tied the game at 2. He tied it at 3 in the fourth inning with a base hit. And then in the fifth, gets the sac fly. Not a hit, but able to give the Nats a 6-5 lead, and they never looked back thanks to 3 in the fifth. They scored 1 in the sixth, and the big one, 7 in the eighth, to break the game open. As for Tanner Roark, to me, he was just leaving the fastball too high in the zone. And if you're going to do that, the Cardinals will make you pay. They've got a good lineup there with Fowler, Carpenter, who's struggling, Piscotty, Grichuk, Molina. There's a lot of good hitters there. You can't afford to put pitches over the middle of the plate and expect them to be successful. It's just not going to happen. So Roark, to me, fastball's got to get lower. He's got to get those ground ball outs. So yes, his defense didn't help him, and he got a win out of it. But usually Roark's better than that. And I thought, to me, maybe I know Wieters and Roark were kind of talking about elevating the fastball. It's got to get lower. It's got to be down in the zone if you want any chance to be successful. So not a great outing from Roark, but I think you'd take it. The other surprise was Stephen Drew. And I think his defensive play in the fifth inning changed the game. There's no question about it. Peralta gets a hit there. It turns 6-3, 7-3. Bullpen gets activated earlier than you want it to. And you probably lose that game. For Drew to do that, then he comes up with the RBI double in the fifth to cut the deficit to 1. His sac fly in the sixth added a run. And then a 2-run base hit in the eighth to break the game open and prevent it from being a save situation. The Nats as a whole tonight went 9 for 19 with men in scoring position. They were 3 for 9 early in the game, so they went 6 for their last 10 in those situations. Drew was 2 for 3 in that spot. He picks up 4 RBIs to lead the team, and that has to be impressive because he's not going to do that every game. I mean, with Trey Turner out for at least the next week or so, a little over a week, you need Stephen Drew to step up. You need Wilmer Difo, who's going to start tomorrow night at shortstop, to be successful. They're not going to be what Trey Turner was. You need him to play good defense on short, get short, and get an occasional hit. Stephen Drew got more than the occasional hit. I think you absolutely take that from him. Bryce Harper, 4 for 4, 2 walks, 3 RBIs, and a broken belt. But that's pretty awesome. I mean, we've seen Harper bunt before, and I know it stresses out a lot of people. Why the heck is Bryce Harper bunting? But that's just who he is. He is the great hustle off the plate. And I like the fact that, hey, he'll still slide head first. It might look stupid, but he gets it done. I mean, to get on base 6 times is impressive, and it wasn't the way that Joe Madden did it last year. And you think that, obviously, Bryce won't be affected by this. So great job by him. Ryan Zimmerman picks up 3 more hits, including a double. He's hitting 400 this season. You said Drew had 3 hits. Matt Wieters had a multi-hit night, 2 for 4. Anthony Rendon's still struggling, but we'll talk more about that. I have an article on that going out tomorrow that you'll want to check out. Don't be worried about it just yet, but it may need a change at the position spot in the batting order. Daniel Murphy, hit streak now at 7 games. He goes 1 for 6 tonight. He hit some good swings, though, on the ball. So for Murphy, again, 5 multi-hit games. He's on a 7-game hitting streak. What rust? The guy's just incredible. In terms of the pitching, I'm going to check for questions here. We got a lot of questions. We got Al and Ron talking here, so we'll let those two chat it up in the chat, but you can feel free to join them as well. Look at the pitching. Matt Albers made his debut tonight, and I thought he did a great job. You look at his line, 2 innings, gave up 1 hit, struck out 2 in that 6th inning, and he was just the guy to come in. The Nats needed a guy to give them multiple innings just to give the Trinans of the world a break, Blanton a break, Romero a break. And now their bullpen's in pretty good shape. They haven't had to use Blake Tryon in the last couple of days, which is huge because Dusty used him so much in the first week of the season. So now Tryon at least is ready to go. Coda Glover looked better tonight, a 1-2-3 8th inning. Still hasn't recorded that strikeout, which I talked about on District on Deck earlier today. He didn't impress yesterday against the Phillies, but I thought he was good against the Cardinals tonight with the 1-2-3 inning. Sean Kelly, a little bit of a concern the ninth, gives up the home run to Jed Jorko, who was pinch hitting. But again, you're up 9. You got to throw a pitch in the strike zone. It won't kill you if you give up a home run. But Sean Kelly gave up a lot of home runs last year, and he has not looked good to start the season. And the Nats are going to need Sean Kelly to be consistent if they're going to want to contend in the National League East. But all in all, I thought a good night for the Nats. They got to Segrist. They got to Cecil. They've killed left-handed pitching so far, which is huge because it kind of negates the fact that Dusty want to split up the lefties. Yes, it's only a few at-bats. It's only a week into the season. But you love the fact that Eaton, Harper, Murphy, fantastic job that they're doing against the left-handers. It won't happen all year like this, but I think you take it and you run with it. So the Nats will go to 4-3 on the season. The Cardinals dropped to 2-5 in a rough first 2 games of the Cardinals. And they have a tough road trip. They have 2 more here in D.C. and then 3 more in the Bronx against the Yankees. So the Cardinals might be a little bit of early trouble. We'll have more on that, of course, throughout the next couple of days. We actually have a great guest coming up tomorrow that we'll tell you about in a little bit. Elsewhere around the division, the New York Mets pick up a 4-3 win over the Phillies. This game had a lot of interesting things. You had Ramos, who's leader for the Phillies, gave the home run last year to Asdrubal Cabrera in September that won the game for the Mets, threw behind the back of Cabrera because he didn't like how he celebrated it, which was a walk-off home run. Don't give up the pitch, dude. So Ramos tries to throw behind Cabrera. Cabrera gets on base, and Jay Bruce, 2 home runs in the ninth, hits a 2-run shot in the 8th. So the Mets win 4-3. So right now the Mets and Nats tied at 4-3. Marlins are a half game back. They are going to be playing tomorrow against, I believe, the Atlanta Braves. Let me double check that real quick. I believe it's the Braves. And yep, they are home for their home opener tomorrow against Atlanta. So 2 at the other 4 teams division going out against each other. The Nats not, obviously. So at least the Nats are back in first place, but with one other team instead of 2. But early on in the season, you don't really like to take a big look at standings until, I think, the end of April. I think that's when you start looking at the standings. I was talking to a person on Twitter tonight who was telling me that he had to revisit his predictions. And I made the point, I think you can't revisit predictions until Memorial Day. Once you get to that point, you want to revise your picks, you can revise your picks. But Memorial Day is like the first unofficial checkpoint on the calendar. So to me, you got to stay with your pick. Be confident in your pick. And I wouldn't overreact to a bad week by the bullpen. They're not going to be this bad all year long. Maybe they won't be as good as we thought they were. But I think they've done a nice job overall. So let's check again for some questions. Got a lot of questions here. Al says, when you can win a game like this, you take it, but beware. What comes around goes around. That's a good point. You can't win games like that every day. And so Al brings up a good point there. Let's look around the minor leagues, as I like to do when I host the DoDcast. Rod's been doing that too. It's a great night to be a Nats minor leaguer because all 4 teams won, and they put up some great offense. Syracuse beat Pawtucket 13-5, so that's going to make Al and Ron very happy, or maybe not. Brandon Snyder with a home run against Kyle Kendrick. You had Irving Falou hit a home run. Pedro Severino went deep. Austin Vogt struggled in this game, went 3 1/3. Gave 2 runs, but threw 77 pitches. So you want to see both sort of fix that pitch count a little bit. But he did a nice job. Syracuse went 7 for 13 at men in scoring position. Austin Adams picks up the win. Good friend of the show. So congratulations to Austin on that. And the Chiefs are on the board in 2017. Harrisburg defeated the Hartford Yard Goats, which is the Rockies AA affiliate, 7-5. An RBI for Yadiel Hernandez, the outfielder the Nats signed from Cuba. Andrew Stevenson now with 6 RBIs in the season. He went 2 for 3. Drew Ward had an RBI. How about Greg Ross tonight on the mound? 6 innings, 3 hits, 5 strikeouts, no walks to pick up the win. Ryan Brindley gets the save. And Greg Ross, we talked about him when we interviewed him earlier this offseason. Before his injury last year, he was really consistent at AA. So he picked up right where he left off. I would keep an eye on Greg Ross. He's not a top pitching prospect, but maybe he'll get to AAA this year. And who knows what he could do from there. So congrats to Greg Ross. He gets the win and even had an RBI in the process. Potomac goes to 3-1. They beat the Frederick Keys 13-4. Victor Robles, another good night at the plate. 3 for 6. Couple doubles, an RBI. No stolen bases, but not going to get a stolen base from Robles every night. Tara Gushu had a grand slam in the first inning. That sort of set the tempo from there. Ian Sagdahl hit a home run, his 2nd of the season. He's now got 5 RBIs. Austin Davidson, Tomedo Augustine, and Rhett Wiseman had RBIs in this one. Ronald Pena gets the win in relief, 2 2/3, 3 hits. He struck out 4, so the Peanuts are 3-1. And how about the comeback by Hagerstown? They were down 4-0 to the undefeated Lakewood. Trying to get the name of the team here. It's Lakewood. It's the Phillies affiliate. It was 4-0, and Hagerstown found a way to come back against the Blue Claws. Daniel Johnson Jr. hit a solo shot in the 3rd. He's got 3 home runs in 2 games. Carter Keyboom is on fire, 2 for 4. He had a big 2-run double to tie the game in the 7th inning. He's hitting .471 so far. Juan Soto's 2 for 4, hitting .444. Sheldon Noyce, 2 for 3 of an RBI single. The win goes to Hayden Howard, 3 innings, 1 hit, 5 strikeouts in relief, and Jorge Pantoja gets the save. Pat Anderson, the Hagerstown manager, told us about him in the offseason. He's one of those guys to keep an eye on, sort of the relievers in the lower level in the Nats system. So 4-0 all around for the minor leagues. You have to be happy with that. If we take a look here, here's Al's question. Why do pitchers feel like they have to throw all their pitches when blowing people at the fastball? See Craig Kimbrell yesterday. I think that's a good point, Al. I think when you look at maybe guys like Coda Glover, just rely on your stuff. I think whatever's working for you, go with it. I don't know why people try to get, maybe they try to get the changeup going, they try to get the off-speed going. You've got to go with the heater. If the heater's working, go with it. You got to trust your stuff. Maybe maybe you mix up the location a little bit. But in the end, I think you take it and you run with it. So I'm kind of surprised like you, Al, the same thing. I'm interested to see, especially with this bullpen, if that maybe changes with location a little bit. We have an update also on the closer situation. Not the closer situation, but there was going to be a save situation. The Nats hadn't scored 7 in the 8th. One of our people tweeted us to ask us to tell them about this situation. So I will do that for them. Here's Chelsea's tweet. Dusty said Kelly was going to close because Nats wanted to get Trina another day of rest after work. 4 days last week. We'll be back tomorrow. So good sign all around. You knew it was kind of to be a rest thing with Trina, and I don't think he lost the job. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when he gets back out there. He's had a couple of rough outings, but Dusty, as you know, likes to get people back in there. So we'll see what's going on with that. Big pitching matchup tomorrow. Tomorrow night at 7:05 p.m. Eastern. We have Gio Gonzalez going up against Lance Lynn. Lynn with a 3.38 ERA. Gio, of course, strong 6 shutout innings in his start against the Marlins last week. Did not get the win, but he looked confident. He was able to get out of big jams when he needed it. Confidence looked good. Obviously, does not have the velocity on his fastball, but much better first time around. It's a national stage. It's on ESPN. John Shambi, Rick Sutcliffe, and Doug Glanville have the call. I'll be watching on ESPN because I live in New York. It's not live unless I do. I get a delay at MLB.tv. So for the goodness of live tweeting with you guys, I'll watch on ESPN. So sorry, Bob and FP. I'm watching on ESPN. But we have a cool idea we're doing. Now, we like to get other fan-sided sites involved in our conversation. So to do that, we're going to have a special guest on tomorrow night's postgame show. As Ron told you yesterday, I'm going to be hosting the postgame shows all for this series. Ron's going to do the Phillies series next week, this weekend. So I'm going to have Brandon Dubala on the show. I hope I got that name right. I'm going to ask him about it before he comes on tomorrow. He's one of the site experts for Redbird Rants. And we're going to do sort of a collab postgame show. So Brandon and I will talk about the game, of course. We'll talk about the pitching matchup between Gonzalez and Lynn. Nats saw a lot of Lynn this spring, who was coming off Tommy John surgery. So the Cardinals need Lynn to sort of step up and be one of those reliable starting pitchers because Wainwright's a big concern right now. He's looked bad. And outside of Carlos Martinez, they don't really have a reliable number 2. So we'll see what Lynn does. But Brennan's going to join me. We'll talk more about this matchup. We'll talk more about the Cardinals' slow start. And we'll have a little fun. Maybe we'll get some Cardinals and Nats questions Cardinals questions in addition to the Nats questions. So Brendan will join us tomorrow after the game. So when you're done watching on Masson or on ESPN, flip over here. We'll have some fun with Brendan and myself here on the DoDcast Postgame show. So tomorrow, again, Ron's going to have the reaction to the game, give his take on it. I'm going to have an article on Anthony Rendon. And basically the point of my article is last year we saw Dusty move Rendon down in the batting order, and it worked. You kind of want to see that here. Rendon went 0 for 6 tonight. He did drive in a run with a ground out in the 8th. He has not looked like himself lately. I don't know if that's from the calf injury that caused him to miss a little bit of time. But Jason Worth seems like the more natural 2-hitter because he takes pitches, he draws walks. Rendon's a guy I want to put more toward the middle to the bottom of the order and use him for that power. Rendon last year had some good numbers, hitting 6th in the order, and right now you can't move Ryan Zimmerman out of the 5 hole because he's doing a great job. So if you put Rendon behind Zimmerman, I think the Nats would have even better results. And to think this lineup can put 16 hits, can put 19 hits on the board without Rendon doing anything, that's scary how good this lineup can be. So again, your takeaways from tonight: Adam Eaton, strong night at the dish. Steven Drew, four RBIs, stepping in for Trey Turner, which again, I think the Nats did the right thing with Turner. Put him on the DL. If it needs 10 days, he needs 10 days. You need Trey Turner for the duration of the season, and you don't want that hamstring to linger. So they did the right thing, not rushing him. Wish they would have did it a little bit earlier, maybe did it yesterday. But Michael Taylor's back, and we'll see. Hopefully Trey Turner gets back healthy real soon from that hamstring injury. So again, your final score: the Nats 14, the Cardinals 6, Roark to 2-0, Wainwright to 0-2. So we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll be back Wednesday, which is an afternoon game. But again, Brendan Dubala is going to join me from Redbird Rants. We'll have some fun. We hope you had fun listening to tonight's DoDcast postgame. Again, always feel free to chime in the comment section or in our chat. If you comment afterwards, we'll try to get to it, of course. You can also tweet us on Twitter at District on Deck. I'll be live tweeting these Cardinal games, so join in the conversation with me. Tell me why I'm wrong. One other questionable decision I had on Dusty was in the second inning, the decision to pitch to Colton Long rather than walk in with the base open to get to Wainwright. And the reason I have a problem with that, again, the pitcher's up next. Wainwright's a good pitcher, but he's still a pitcher. And with the new intentional walk rule, you're saving 4 pitches. So that might have helped Roark later in the game. But again, revisionist history, and Nats still won the game anyway. So again, follow us on Twitter at District on Deck. Follow me on Twitter at Rickinator555. So for Ron Juckett and for our entire District on Deck team, I'm Ricky Keeler saying I hope you have a great night or a great morning if you're listening tomorrow. And we'll see you back here tomorrow night for the Lance Lynn Gio Gonzalez postgame with some help from our friends from Redbird Brants.